The class is a minute late too, so don't worry about it. So this is the Tai Chi Paradigm for Parkinson's. We're going to go through a few warm-ups as we usually do some of the walking. I've been doing a couple of postures that require some coordination and a little bit of footwork, so we're going to go through that. But as always, we want to start off in a shoulder width stance. Okay, work off of this circle, the hoop position for the waist turning. So we're turning to try to get some range of motion. Everything that we do is to avoid rigidity and stiffness if possible. You can do this freely. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. And then go to the side. 1. So this is bending, but it's also stretching. So stretching helps to relax or at least increase the range of motion. And when you bend over like this, you open up this whole section of your body and you open up this side. So your spine actually does curve a little bit. Okay, next we're going to go straight up. Stretch out the back of the legs. This will help take a little bit of the stress off the lower back. You just have to do this 3 or 4 times a day if you can. Don't do it right out of bed, but do it maybe 45 minutes to an hour after you had your coffee and you're ready to move a little bit, because right out of bed you're going to be a little bit too rigid or stiff just from lying in bed all night to do this. Okay, so one more time, hands up, reach down, turn to your right, turn to your left, back to center, lift up, inhale, exhale. Now this exercise, if you have trouble just kind of free falling, put your hands on your thighs like this, give yourself a little support, ease it down, go as deep as you can. Don't overdo it, just kind of relax and let it go. Try to reach a little further each time, all right? Hands on your waist. We're making a circle. So while we're making a circle with the hips, we really have to let the ankles relax and shift from side to side, okay? So you can feel in the soles of your feet the pressure change. Then we reverse the direction. Okay, center. Now we're going to cross the forearms and then hold the kneecaps. Make a few circles. And switch the hands, go the other direction. Now just remember that everything is done relaxed or as gentle as possible. Don't force the movement. It's not done quickly, it's done slowly. So you try to develop a feeling. What does the movement feel like? Okay, center. Hands on your waist. Okay, turn the head. Okay, back and forth. And center. Tilt, 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 tilt. 2, 3, 1, 2. Center, circular movements. Reverse. And center. Hands up. Pull in, inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Okay, now we're going to spread the feet, turn your shoulders. And center. Okay, shake it out. Deep breathing. So let's do the deep breathing slowly. 1, 2, 3, and down. Okay, so that series of exercises that we just did, fairly simple. They're recorded. You can revisit it. You should subscribe, do the notification bell, because those exercises, if you get that routine down, you can do those exercises daily. You don't have to rely on the class that we have on Thursdays at 11:10 to do these exercises. The reason we're doing it and recording it is so that you have access to these videos and you can do that. Some of the other things might be a little bit too much to memorize and so forth, and you might need to follow the video to do them. But those simple exercises, there's a specific order. You follow those exercises. What will end up happening is you'll remember them and then go through them several times a week, or if possible, do it every day. And it's not very physical, so you're not going to get sore from them. You're not going to get winded or exhausted doing them. It's really just creating movement and some improve your circulation. And then while you're doing that, you're freeing up the body and working some of the muscle groups in your body to, and try to avoid the rigidity and stiffness. And while you're doing that, take some of that stress out of your mind that your body is going through some changes. So, it's just something to keep in mind. A lot of times people that follow these videos don't understand that it's not just there for you to copy, it's there for you to learn. And learning is the most essential part. And then understanding why you need to do these is even more important, because if you understand why you need to do these, then the tendency is to do them. And you won't experience any benefit until you've done them for a period of time, maybe a couple of weeks, or even you might get some immediate results, but the thing is, you have to do them. Now, going to the feet and the legs, this is something we talk about, the hands on the hips, and we go to this V position, we go to this parallel position, and we just work the feet so we learn to shift the weight. So you notice you're always pivoting off of one leg and shifting weight to that same foot. So in other words, when I have my weight on this side, I can shift this. When I bring the weight back to the other side, I shift this, and then you reverse the order. So that'll give you a mechanism to feel how you can control your feet in a direction. Now, when we're in this V position, you don't really have options of which way you're going to go, right? Because you're kind of stuck here. When you go like that and like that, now you have a position, still, we call it double weighted, still unable to take that step. The reason for that is because you really have to take weight off your feet in order to step. Now, this isn't the ideal walking position to start off with. The ideal walking position would probably be more of this position where your feet are closer together. Maybe an inch apart, maybe 2 inches apart. That's really the ideal position, mainly because the center line that goes right through your feet, right between your feet, if you drew a line from the top of your head right through your spine to your tailbone, there's a point between your feet that is your balance point. So the closer you are to that center, the less waddling there'll be when you shift. Because if I'm in this shoulder width position from that V position, when I take a step, even if I move it straight out, the movement is too extreme in order to maintain control of your center. So when we don't control our center, then we don't control our weight when we take a step, and we end up dropping our weight over there, and that's really not very safe or not very controlled. So when you have your feet in a V position, if you pull your feet in so that there may be, or even if it's easier, just look down and see if you have about 2 inches between your feet. And then the shift is very minute. It's a little bit of shift and you step, a little bit of shift and you step, and you maintain that 2-inch space between the feet, being kind of conscious that you have to have that space between the feet without kind of stepping out and stepping out. Then you'll be able to work on that step and walking more efficiently and begin to understand that this is what your goal is, to walk a straight line. And if you keep that center line more narrow, you don't have to walk the tightrope where foot is in front of each other. That you only do that during a sobriety test, and we're not actually needing to do that because we shouldn't be doing this class after a couple of drinks. So we're working off this 2-inch space, and we're just going to look forward, gaze down a little bit, maybe 8 to 10 feet ahead, and then when you take that step, you're actually passing through center, and that gap between your feet is a fairly natural gap, and you go to the heel and then to the toe, the heel and then to the toe. And then if you go backwards, you would reverse and then track that movement backwards. But with that said, the frontal walk is actually part of this training. Now, turning to a corner. If I pivot this foot 45 degrees, remember when we were here we learned to shift and then pivot, and then we learned to take that step. There's my new front. If I turn 45 degree here, there's my new front again. So every time you pivot a quarter turn or 45 degrees, you'll discover that you'll have a new direction of movement and a new center. So when we're here, there's your new center. If I turn this way, there's my new center. It's just quarter degree turns or 45 degrees, and you just learn to do that, and then you can go back the other way. So that's all we're doing, is steering in a direction to get into a parallel position, whether you take your right step first or your left and right, start from here, pivot to here, and go. So remember, increments of 45 degrees, whether it's right or left, pivoting off the foot that's the direction you're headed. So this is going in this direction. Doesn't matter whether it's right or left. I'm going this way. It's my right. It would be your left if it was mirror image. If you follow my hands, I'm doing that. And then I go in that direction. If you follow my hands, that's where I'm going. So it's like steering in a direction. If I turn this way, I go this way. If I turn this way, I go this way. That's essentially what we do in Tai Chi. It's reversing the ball. So all you do is have to steer yourself in a direction, and then you're here. You turn this way, and we're here. So that's right to left, right? This is forward and back. So when we take a step, we want to move like this. 1, 2, 3. Okay, if we go backwards, which I won't do, we'll just, I have to step back, and it's a little bit more complicated when we step backwards, but this is 1, 2, 3. Because when you shift back, you actually have to shift your weight and then slide like that. So that's a little bit more, because you're not watching behind you, it's more of a feeling. So, that's something that you can work building, but going forward at first and then turn into that direction. Now, right now we're using our hands just to get an idea that when the toe points that way, my fingertips point that way. But, that's not practical to do. If you're in public or something, you might, not want to have your hands up there and stare like that. You could be holding something and turn. But this is just the visuals to give you an idea that this is what actually happens when we start to turn. Okay. Now, this is a circle going clockwise for me and counterclockwise for you. So this is 2 circular movements, and the reason why we do that is to create the freedom of movement with the shoulders, and we can coordinate that with the front legs and with the forward and backward walk. So this is actually a little bit easier than this, because when we do this and then go backwards, we have to track that coordination. But with this, we're just making a quarter circle, a half circle. So it's 1 revolution per 3 steps. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So what we're always trying to do is keep a vertical posture, not tilting. So if you're doing the circle, it would be down here if you're tilted. So this actually helps you track the vertical line, because just think of yourself in front of say a blackboard, and you're trying to make a circle on the blackboard and you're keeping it flat. So when you're doing this, you want to use an idea to help you understand what you're trying to do in the plane of movement. Because if we're tracking it like this, we're going to really go directly forward. If you lose the plane of movement, it's going to take you off in another direction. Now, if I want to go into this other direction, I can actually turn like this and then walk over there. If I want to turn over there, I would go in the opposite direction and then take my step. So, while you're using your feet to steer you in a direction, your arms also take you in a direction. Now, it would be a little bit more complicated to go this way, because then I'd have to take a step. Pivoting like this is a little trickier because that's going in the opposite direction. We're not doing that. We want to just go in the same direction. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So everything we're working with is trying to get us in the direction. So steering in this direction, we're turning in that direction. So here we're turning in that direction. Here we're turning in that direction and turning in that direction. All right. In the forward direction, it's just in the frontal plane. In the backward direction, it's just in the frontal plane. No twisting of the body. Okay, just try to keep that as still as possible, just for building that timing and maybe perception of space. And at the same time, when we move, we want to go, well, if you look at the feet, it's heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe. That Tai Chi actually deals a lot with shifting of weight. I'm not going into this forward-leaning position because in the beginning, you can't really relate to what's going on with that and the footwork. So because you haven't connected the idea. But if you were to stay in a position like this and you roll off the back of the foot and you roll back, that'll give you an idea that's sort of a natural way of stepping and walking, because you're really rolling off the foot and you're not really bending your knees. When you start to bend your knees, you're getting into a deeper stance, and that's really a different objective. You're still shifting a weight, but sustaining it in a different way. Okay, but here when you shift, you're still sustaining the weight, but you're stacked more vertically, and you want to relax the joints when you're going through that position because you want that vertical spine and that vertical line. So then your balance will start to improve, because as you notice, if I step forward and I'm in this vertical position, I'm actually here for an instant before my heel goes down, and as I roll, I'm in this, during this transitional phase. I can't get this foot to this point without actually balancing and holding 100% of my weight on that single leg. So those are two things you have to remember. Every time you take a step, you make a transition from 0 to 100, or 100 to 0. That process is constant. You go from 0 to 100, 100 to 0, 0 to 100, 100 to 0. So 100 to 0. 100 to 0. That's actually what has to happen as a support phase in your stepping. And by supporting your 100% of the weight on one leg, you're actually building response. There's some feedback to let you know where your body weight is and what that feels like to hold all your weight. Now, because we're not squatting down like that, we don't tax the thighs as much. So build off of that, and then you see how you progress. There's a lot of other things that we did in the postures that I don't know if we have time, but with this is cloud hands, and at some point we could work the cloud hands stepping to the side. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's lateral movement, moving to the side. Forward movement is taking the step there. And then if you can get some of those basic fundamentals down as far as a bit of shifting, 0 to 100, 0 to 100, then we can build off of those to do a little bit more of posturing in the Tai Chi form, and then build maybe a short sequence that we could use as an additional practicing, because learning form and learning sequence requires memory. So memory is important, sequential memory is important, so that also will help support some of the brain plasticity that you need to build, besides building coordination and sort of control and understanding of how to take your steps. So I think this information will be valuable for you if you kind of watch it a few more times, and then do these exercises. Try to memorize them. All right, on that note, I'll see you next Thursday, same time, 11:10. If you want to be notified, hit that notification button on YouTube and subscribe, and you'll get notified every time a class is going to be filmed, or it's archived, but it's also part of our channel. And if you can share this with anybody that you think might be able to benefit from this, then by all means share it. It doesn't cost anything, so nothing's more valuable than getting this content, and it doesn't